first thing I should say is this. The back path had a gate someone meant to keep closed. My name is Derek Pullman. I worked as a volunteer for the Haunted Hollow Trail in October 2023. Small town thing, Ashford. I thought it would be easy, a few hours standing at a post, telling people not to wander. I was wrong, dead wrong. Training night was sloppy. Carl handed out cheap walkie-talkies and paper maps that looked like they were photocopied 10 times. We all laughed. An older lady, Susan, asked about flashlights. Carl said the decorations would be enough. He sounded sure. I trusted that. I shouldn't have. Opening night was Friday the 13th. First hour, families, kids screaming, actors jumping out. It was fine. But later the lights were half gone, string lights flickering, and the map didn't match the path. My checkpoint was deep in the back. The path there was barely lit. The air felt colder as the night moved on. I checked my phone, battery down, and kept hearing static on the walkie. At 9:30, a radio call said an old man was missing. Gray jacket, dementia. The volunteers fumbled. Carl told us not to call 911 yet. Handle it internally. I remember that line. It sounded like he wanted to control the story. We started searching, but the map didn't help. Paths ended in fence or thick weeds. My radio lost power. I heard distant shouts that went nowhere. Around 10:30, I found a maintenance gate behind weeds and a broken tractor. It had a loose chain. Tape had been stretched across once, but it was gone. I should have waited. I didn't. I went down the narrow dirt track. No lights. My phone flashlight barely cut a path. The woods smelled wet and old. I followed the sound of leaves crunching, and then I saw him, sitting by a tree. Cold, pale, shaking. He didn't rise. He said he couldn't find the way out. He sounded confused, like the world had moved without him. I tried the radio. Dead. I half carried him back toward the main trail. I swore I heard matching steps behind us, like someone walking the same pace. I kept glancing back. There was nothing. We found the family near the entrance. They cried and yelled at Carl. Ambulance came. The festival shut down. Then I found emails showing they'd known about bad lighting and wrong maps. The council ignored warnings to delay. Maintenance had written reports. Unstable ground, rusted gear, no cell service. I read it and felt sick. Marcus messaged later. The old man's daughter said he told them he had been trying to climb the tree to get away from something. He didn't remember sitting down. He kept dreaming someone watching. That stuck with me. The scratches were too high for someone sitting or falling. What had he been trying to climb away from? We called police again. They took the album, the toys. The house of cards of negligence fell apart. An inspector found bones under the summer kitchen floor. Child bones. That changed everything. The town that had shrugged now whispered. Old secrets moved like dust in sunlight. The landlord back then, Ellis, had been accused of harassing the family. He died years ago, but his son Frank later admitted he'd sealed the summer kitchen at his father's command. We moved to a motel while the house was dug up. The motel was thin-walled and smelled of cleaning chemical. Nights I couldn't sleep. My jaw clenched. I kept finding little things, like a toy car in the closet of the condo we rented, even though we hadn't packed one. I threw some things out, but others kept coming back in odd ways. Frank was arrested for tampering, and later for hiding evidence. He raved in custody about secrets in his father. At trial, police found small tools and ropes in Frank's truck, plus photos. He'd been watching the property ever since. He claimed he didn't kill the child, but confessed his family hid a thing they wanted buried. Later tests confirmed the bones were Tommy's. After that, my life thinned and sharpened. We sold the house, moved states. It felt safer, but tiny things kept dragging us back. Once, at a hardware store, a man in an old truck idled and stared as I walked by. I felt the old property like a shadow pull at my collar. It was as though the land kept an echo. At the memorial the town organized, faces were raw and polite. People who'd looked away stood in a line, folding hands, pretending the past washed away with coughs and polite nods. Sarah laid a faded blanket on the stone marker. She whispered Tommy's name like a promise. I watched and thought about the nights I'd see something move behind trees. I still hear knocks sometimes, soft from walls, like a child's small knuckles. Buddy, our dog, would lift his ears and stare where I couldn't. At night, when the AC cuts and the apartment settles, I turn on a light and leave it. It feels stupid, but small lights feel like tiny promises. Sometimes I think the worst thing wasn't the bones or the council's greed. It was the way people chose silence for comfort, the way warnings were ignored, the way a path with a loose chain became a trap because nobody forced themselves to look. That haunts me more than anything else. I don't have neat answers, but some nights I replay the sound of leaves and the matched footsteps that kept time with mine. My chest clenches remembering the old man's face, not angry, not sad. He just looked like someone who had seen a shape and couldn't tell you its name. He kept saying nothing, only that he couldn't find the way out. I still go back to training night in my head. Carl gave us maps that didn't match the land. Susan asked for flashlights, and Carl said we'd be fine. We were not. Jenny called the radio with a voice that cracked. Grandfather missing, she said. We fanned out, stepping into dark that swallowed our shoes. Paths ended in weeds. Radios hissed. I remember the feeling, like the map was a joke no one wanted to admit. When I found the man, he sat against a tree and looked like he'd misplaced himself. He blinked and said he couldn't find the way out. I carried him with a few other guys, boots sinking, pulling him like a coat. The steps matched mine. I still can't explain that. As if someone walked with us and kept in time. That small, weird thing stayed with me. Marcus showed me memos later. Roy, the maintenance man, emailed warnings. Unstable ground, rusted equipment, no cell service. He suggested blocking the back section. 2 days later, he quit. People who read that email did nothing. That is the real re-hook for me. They knew, and they opened anyway. A chain of small ignores made a bigger harm. When the dig found bones, the town changed. Men en masse worked the pit. We watched from a distance. They lifted tiny things. A toy, a rag. The detective said the bones were a child. Tommy. The album with a boy on a small bike sat on a table in the station like a thing too bright for that room. The mayor called a meeting. The council shuffled papers and blamed vendors. Carl kept quiet. Frank, Ellis's son, admitted sealing the summer kitchen at his father's command. He said he'd carried out orders and hidden things. In his truck, police found ropes and photos of people on the property at night. He raved in custody about secrets and old favors. The trial made the town uneasy. Neighbors who had once waved at our house stopped. The magazines ran headlines, but the hurt inside houses stayed. We tried small rituals to feel less helpless. Sarah planted sunflowers. Tommy liked flowers in the photos. We left a toy car on the windowsill. A child once slipped a note in a library book that said, "Look after him." Tiny acts like that made us human again. They were not the same as justice, but they mattered to someone with little hands. The calls continued. One night a voice breathed on the line and said, "Why'd you leave me?" It was a small thing that rattled my bones. The detective told us pranksters were likely, but I knew pranks when I saw them. This felt like a hand tapping the glass. People split apart. Some kept asking questions and wouldn't stop. Others looked down. At the supermarket, a man I knew avoided me. A woman who used to greet me nodded slowly and then walked past. Silence spread. Helps the worst things to hide. I drove by the house a few times after we left. The for sale sign leaned and the curtains waved like a small, slow hand. Once I found a loose stone in the wall and inside an envelope with old photos of the Reeds arguing with Ellis. A note. Help us. I kept that paper in a drawer. It felt like carrying a breadcrumb. We moved states. It helped my sleep a little, but small things followed. A small toy in a box we hadn't packed. A scratch at the wood of our back door one night that made Buddy whine. We left a light on. We kept an extra battery in the glove box. We took care to check fences and chains. At the memorial, the town finally showed up. People stood and some wept. Others held their breath. Sarah put the faded blanket on the marker and said Tommy's name out loud. Saying it made it less vague. It made a child real again in a place that had tried to make him into a rumor. What I learned is simple. Tiny things add up. A loose chain, a strip of tape, a memo ignored. They can become the hinge for bad nights. If you see a path left open on purpose, say something. Bring a light. Listen for footsteps that match yours. Don't let a town's quiet be an excuse. There are nights I walk the dog and see a strip of orange tape tangled in a bush, and my heart jumps. It's a tiny thing and meaningless by itself, but it drags me back. I think about Roy quitting and moving. Marcus told me Roy's hands shook when he left. He said Roy refused to speak about the back section. That refusal felt like a half-closed door. I wanted to pry it open. People asked me why we didn't push harder at the time. Why didn't we lock that gate? Why didn't I shout into the dark? Those are fair questions. I was volunteer, a kid with a radio that died, and a man named Carl telling us to handle this quietly. I followed orders. That haunts me too. There's a small guilt in doing what you are told instead of what you fear. Sometimes I think the worst moment wasn't opening the gate. It was the town choosing a path of small comforts, choosing to sell tickets over taking another week, choosing the deadline over safety. Those choices are made in rooms with coffee rings on paper and someone's smiling voice. It feels less dramatic to say that than to imagine monsters, but the result is the same: harm. I will say one more thing. After the trial, I became extra aware of footsteps, in stores, on porches, in empty parking lots. If someone walks behind me, my skin prickles. Small things, not proof, but they are how memory lives, in small touches. I don't want to scare people for the thrill of it. I want them to check the chain on a gate, to listen to a neighbor, to take a child's note seriously. If you hear a step that matches your own, ask aloud who walks with you. It might be nothing, or it might be a small voice asking, "Why'd you leave me?" Either way, asking is the first step to answering. I should add, there were small things that kept pulling at me, little stuff you think is dumb until it isn't. My phone dies faster near certain roads now. Buddy stares at the back fence like he hears someone. Once I dreamt of footprints circling the house and stopping at our front step. I woke sweating, saw the porch light on. I hadn't turned it on. I make a list sometimes, in my head. A strip of tape, a child's shoe, a toy with one wheel stuck. I say them like a prayer because otherwise they spill out as anger. I think about the emails Marcus showed me, the maintenance guy's memo, not loud but clear. Block it. That tiny sentence felt heavy after. There are nights I drive past the farm and the for sale sign looks wrong, like a tooth tilted in an empty mouth. Curtains closed. I watch the trees move and try to tell myself it's normal. Sometimes I stop, put my head on the wheel and say, "We did what we could." Saying it helps. It feels like an offering. I won't pretend I'm brave. I didn't lock the gate. I didn't shout into the dark. I followed orders because I was told to. That guilt sits with me. Bravery back then would have been messy and expensive. People chose easy. The easy choice left a hole. If you take anything from this, notice the small things. A chain, a flashlight, a worker's warning. Those boring pieces keep people safe. The rest, meetings, deadlines, smiles, can hide harm. Listen for the soft knocks. Ask who walks with you. It may be nothing, or it may be a small voice asking for help. Either way, don't pretend you didn't hear. And if you ever stand at a gate, don't assume the tape means anything. Lock it. Call someone. Don't walk away. Not ever again.